Hey viewers and listeners, my name's Cara. I've been thinking for a while, I say hey viewers, but at the end I say thanks for watching and or listening, because I know some of you are just listening in the background and not actively watching, but also some people can't physically watch, and some people can't physically listen. And there are so many other fun things that I could say. I've just been saying hey viewers for so long that it's a habit. I could say hey friends, I could say hey everyone, I could say hey witches, and in the past I have not wanted to say hey witches because I know that not everybody who watches this is a witch, even though a lot of my content is for witches and also pagans, and not all pagans are witches. But anyway, I don't know. Hello, my name's Cara, this is my channel. And this is the fifth day of Vlogstice, which means we're halfway through. So let's go ahead and do our dailies. We've got an advent calendar here. We're gonna open a couple candles. Da 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 da. So we have to open 9 and 10 today because today is the 9th that I'm recording this and the 10th is the day that this is being made for. So there's 10, there's 9. Okay, I'll leave that one back there for now, but this is number 9. Was the last one in a green thing? No, they're not really alternating in the colors of the things. I thought maybe they were, but look, we only have like one stripy one left already. There's a bunch of green ones left. Anyway, here's number 9. It's in a blue thing and it's in a blue jar. And I need to nope, not look at the label. There we go. I saw the glitter of the gold. I want to try to guess them. Okay, I don't know what this is immediately, but it's nice. This is another one with like a light sort of powdery, but it has that thing that kind of reminds me of baby powder that I think I said about the marshmallow one. I'm also not like looking at the list again, so I'm not like, well, I remember there's one with marshmallows, so I'm not like trying to guess what it is from the list. I don't know, it just kind of smells like baby powder, so I could see this being something like fresh snow, like powdery snow, even though I don't know. What is it? What is this? Whoa, oh my gosh. But maybe it's just because it doesn't really smell like it, but it's frankincense and myrrh. And I burn incense that is actual frankincense resin and myrrh resin. So maybe this candle just doesn't actually smell like those things, but I was miles away from that. Definitely wasn't thinking that. But it is a nice scent. So that was day 9. And then day 10, we have... Okay, this has a coffee scent. That other one said it was supposed to have a coffee scent, but it didn't really. This has coffee. Yeah, this smells like a mocha. This smells like a hot cocoa. Yeah. Okay. And it is milk and cookies. Okay. I could see that. I could see that being like chocolate chip cookies and not coffee. But it's like a cafe baked good. Yeah, I got coffee as the first scent, but I can see that being a cookie scent and not a coffee. And I just realized I forgot to read the ingredients, but let's just do them for both at once. Then we only have to move the box back and forth one time. So frankincense and myrrh says that it has coriander, lang, and gurjum, Gurjum. Lang is usually like lang lang, Ylang. That's a scent or an essential oil. So if that's in here, that might also explain why it smelled different to me. That's another like incense oil that I'm familiar with. So when I look it up online, gurjum, it says gurjum on here. Online it says it's actually gurjun with an N, but gurjum is what they tend to call gurjun balsam resin. So it's a balsam wood. So this is the thing that's confusing. None of the things that are listed as being in this fragrance are actually frankincense or myrrh. It's lang lang and balsam wood and coriander. So I don't know about that. And then milk and cookies says that it is toffee, Brazil nuts, and dark chocolate cookie. Sure, I can see the cookie scent for sure. And I guess maybe toffee? I was just so sure that was going to be a coffee one. Well, anyway, that's what we got. And these two, the jar color also matched the box color. That has not been the case every time. I have been leaving the boxes with the jars out of this box, so having to like stack them somewhere else in the room, I've had to put them upside down because Nebula was trying to eat them. She's sitting right there in the corner right now watching me put them back. Also, I got a new shirt. This is my new Cat Magic Punks shirt. I like their long sleeves that have art on the sleeves. I have another one. I have his Cosmos design that you've seen me wear before. It's the one that has multiple cats on it and it has 2 moons like up here. So usually you see that top part of the shirt. I love that shirt. I wear it all the time because it's the only long sleeve of his that I had. I have multiple short sleeves. I have the hat. I should say one of the hats. There are multiple hats, but I have the Cat Magic Punks hat, beanie, and multiple short sleeves and a tank top, but I only had one long sleeve and I wear it all the time. So I got this one. This is actually one of the Halloween designs from a few years ago, but I hadn't gotten it yet. So that's Ryan is the artist of Cat Magic Punks. I also have a neck gaiter from them that's just like a cat face. So when you pull it up, it's got a cat face on your face. Anyway, love them. Certain products and designs also donate a portion of the proceeds to various organizations and nonprofits. There are also sometimes that they do fundraisers where all purchases of any designs will go toward a certain cause. So I love that as well. But I also just love, you know, the vibe and the cats. So you see me wearing this stuff a lot. And I have more that I've never worn because I need to resize them. They don't all fit me exactly right, but I like how the long sleeves fit. Anyways, we're also going to do the card of the day because I haven't done that yet today. I just finished having my tea, came and sat down at the desk to start recording, so this is the time that I would be doing it. No specific question, just a card for today. I don't usually ask questions with my daily pulls. The daily pull is just to have a card for the day. I think it would be a different goal in my mind to like ask a specific question with a one card pull every day. That would be a different thing. We got Adalita of Water, Ocotillo, which is a cactus that I saw a lot out in the Sonoran Desert. Not a lot, but definitely more than I see it in the other places I've lived. So the guidebook gives you the scientific name of the plant, a little bit of a like keywords and phrases, an image description of the artwork, the interpretation of the card in a divinatory sense, and then a few like activities that you could do as far as the crafting part of Herbcrafters. So the card depicts someone making tea from Ocotillo flowers, so it's kind of a light pink. And since it is a water suit, it's more about the emotions. So it talks about love, boundaries for healthy relationships, giving your whole heart to your cause. I was just talking about various causes that I care about, so that's interesting. Committed to nurturing the spirit. Time alone allows for discovery of innermost desires. I'm skimming through this. It's written in full sentences. The inner heartwood of Ocotillo is used as sturdy building material. The beautiful flowers remain safe at the top of the tall plant covered in hidden thorns. The Adalita of Water shares her heart with brilliant flair while keeping it safe and protected from harm. She has a deeply caring center but will battle to protect her boundaries when it comes to love. So crafting, warm your heart, make a sun tea with flower blossoms. Grow a small cactus in a windowsill to remind you that your boundaries are sacred. And then I'm going to write this in my planner so I know that's what I pulled today. I also note the deck that it's from, just in case it's not obvious with every deck. This one is obvious which deck it is, but sometimes, depending on the deck, it's all just like, oh, it's the 7 of Wands, oh, it's the 5 of Cups, and it's like, well, which deck were you using at that time, because that matters. But yeah, if you're not familiar with this deck, I really fell in love with this through seeing it on one of my friend's social media accounts, and I wanted a plant-based deck in my collection because I didn't have a plant deck yet. So that was just something that I wanted, and I happened to be seeing this one and I really liked it. And when I looked through the guidebook, I read this whole thing cover to cover. I don't always use it when I use it for myself because I'm still learning this deck, but once I get to know a deck, I'm not like reading out of the book when I read for other people. But there are some guidebooks that I just really love the way that the creator and the writer of the book portion anyway, because they're not always the same as the artist. Sometimes I just really, really love what they've put into the context, and with this deck in particular, I really love the way that they have arranged everything. Like the guidebook, instead of being in suits by, you know, all of the air ones and then all of the fire ones, it's by the numbers. So you've got all the major arcanas first, of course, but then there's a section just about all of the aces and what the aces represent, and then all of the 2s and all of the 3s, because they grouped and like chose which plants would be what card based on the numbers. So like all of the aces are cards that most people consider weeds, and they're very common and they're everywhere. So they're a good starting point on a journey into working with plants. So they're the aces. The fours, and the number 4 being a very like stable, structured, 4 points makes a pretty stable structure, kind of a box, right, at that point. Those are all plants that are commonly used to create borders and boundaries in a garden. The 7s are all trees. The 8s are all root-based plants, plants that we use the root as the medicine. The 9s are all fruit trees, etc. So all of the grouping is by the numbers, and I thought that is so brilliant. So I really love that about this deck. So now we've got this in its little stand, and that's gonna go right there for the rest of my day. So what else are we actually talking about today? The last video was pretty short because, as I said, I had a lot of editing work to do, so I could talk more about that. But I could also talk more about readings because I did have it on my list to talk about readings and the way that I do them. So yeah, maybe we do that today. Let's do that. That feels good. I'll talk about a couple other decks that I'm using a lot recently. So I think you all know by this point, when I say you all, I mean people who have been around and seen a lot of my videos. If you have seen other videos in which I have talked about tarot, you know that one of my favorite indie decks that I have and that I use a lot for myself, I also use it for readings for other people, but I use it a lot for myself, is the Spacious Tarot by Carrie Mallon and Annie Wright. And I also have now the expansion. I got it before it went out of stock, out of sale, before they stopped selling it. I don't know why I was struggling with that phrase. It's not just out of stock, they stopped selling it. My friend had gotten this. My friend also has a bunch of the decks that I have, and they had gotten this, and I kept saying I was meaning to get it, and then I think it came up in conversation with my friend, and they were like, said something about seeing a post that it was gonna be no longer sold soon, so that reminded me to go and get it. This is the deck that I used when I did my Leap Day readings, and the readings that I did are still on a sticky note inside the box. I did that on Leap Day in 2024. But the expansion also has a little tiny guidebook we love. And this actually does barely, because of how this box is built, this does barely fit inside it. It doesn't like easily close around it, but I can put them together if I'm like taking them to go somewhere. If I just like put a rubber band around it, it's fine. It's all in the one box. I keep it in the separate box, but you could just shuffle them all together. And then especially if you don't put the guidebooks in the box with it, there's plenty of room to just put all the cards in the box. But I love the guidebooks because I love what Carrie has written about various things. When I read with it for other people, I don't read out of the guidebook. But when I'm reading just for myself, I love to interpret it for myself the way that I would as a reader. And then I also look at the guidebook to see what other little keywords or phrases Carrie might have added that spark something for me that I didn't previously think of. But this expansion has zodiac sign cards, so Virgo was on the top, and element cards. So I had Virgo and Earth on the top together because when I do my year card readings, which is something that is offered on my Ko-fi shop, and I'll talk more about that in a little bit here. When I do my year card readings, that is based on the numerology of your birthday, and so for a couple people, because they paid extra for the reading, they're on a sliding scale. So if you pay a little bit extra, I'm likely to pull some bonus cards for you. So I pulled the bonus cards that matched. So I was doing readings for Virgos because it was Virgo season and they were getting birthday readings. So there's that. So there's Capricorn, there's Pisces is a snowflake, we've got Aries, Volcano, Gemini, Leo is a little, what do you call this? If you have these where you live, what do you call it? This is either a lightning bug or a firefly, depending on who I was talking to when I was growing up, but I knew people who called them both. If you call these anything other than that too, let me know. That's interesting. Cancer, big wave, Libra, monarch butterflies, so beautiful. Scorpio. Sagittarius is this beautiful sort of autumn pathway. Aquarius. Taurus. And then you've already seen Earth, so there's fire, air. Air is the one that's on the guidebook and the box. And water. So really, really early tarot decks had more cards than what we now know as the standard tarot system. There were cards for all the zodiac signs, cards for the elements. There were also cards for things like the 7 cardinal virtues, or things like faith, hope, and charity. Like, there were a lot of other cards for a lot of other things in historical decks. So this expansion pack brings back some of that, but there's also some additional cards that are other things. So there's a card for connection. I know you can't really read the font because of the way that my camera doesn't like autofocus. But there's connection, there's curiosity, which is like synapses sort of firing together. This one is transcendence or spaciousness? Spaciousness. So this is the expansion of the Spacious Tarot, and this card is called Spaciousness. This one is transcendence. I knew one of them was. See, now I could see that going the other way. This could be spaciousness because it's space, and this looks like transcendence to me. But yeah, spaciousness, transcendence, and this one is called offering. Little bird and some buds and berries on some branches. So I don't use the expansion a ton yet. I mostly just pull them out when I want to reference the depiction of the zodiac and the element for those numerology readings that I do. But I've done a couple of readings for myself so far with the expansion pack mixed into the main deck. They do have matching backs so that you can mix them up. And there was one version of a printing of their deck of the Spacious Tarot that had like a different off-colored background. So when I bought the expansion, it said there were 2 different versions. And it was like, if you bought the Spacious Tarot between this time or these years, get this one. If you bought your Spacious Tarot between these years or these dates, get this other one, because the backs were a different color slightly, so they wouldn't have matched. So I'm holding them weird, but they are the same size, they are the same color, so that you can mix them up, and when you're shuffling you wouldn't be able to tell what's what. So, but some of you already knew that I like the Spacious Tarot, so the expansion might be news to you, but me talking about Spacious is not super groundbreaking news. I love this deck and I'll continue to talk about it, but like some of you already knew that. And here is the evidence that it will fit in the box. But if I let go, it just kind of, it doesn't stay all the way shut on its own. But it definitely closes with the entire box and everything in there. So anyway, I keep these by my desk because I use them a lot for myself. Although I haven't super recently because I got some new decks. Now this one I didn't just get, I've had this deck for a couple of years, and I recorded a whole flip through video of it that never ended up getting posted. So I might still do that. But I actually won this in a raffle for a mutual aid event that a friend of mine in Reclaiming was putting on. So the artist, Christy C. Rode, had donated a bunch of the pocket editions. This is the smaller edition. There is a larger standard edition of their deck, The Next World Tarot. So I won this. It is the pocket version. With this deck, the artist also sent me a full-size world card. I have it framed. So here's the full size, and here's the pocket size for comparison. At least I think that's a full-size card. That might just be like an art print size, because that's bigger than a standard tarot card. Quite a bit bigger than the Spacious cards. So I don't know, maybe this is a jumbo version, but a full deck of this size would be too big for me to work with. But anyway, the pocket size guidebook is in this orientation. So it's landscape instead of portrait, and I have highlighted the edges of the pages with the colors that I associate with the different suits to help me more easily find it, because the box is so snug that if I were to put little like tabs, they wouldn't fit properly, so I just colored the edges of my book. But this is the Next World Tarot. It's quite diverse and social justice oriented. We have a flower encircled in barbed wire. So I did record an entire flip through of this, so I don't want to do that now by any means. But I've had this deck for a couple of years now, and I wasn't using it overly much. I am using it more now for some of the specific work that I'm doing. I don't think I've really used it to read for other people yet, maybe once. But I feel like I don't really know it all that well yet, so I like to wait until I feel like I have a little bit more of a grasp of a deck. Some of the majors are renamed, like the number 4 major is the Teacher. And again, I wish the camera auto-focused better, but if it's in focus back here, I could try to zoom it. But there's the Teacher, and the number 12 card is Suspension. They're not all renamed, of course, but just a few of them. And then the Justice card is the one that the artwork is on this little guidebook. So that was a very cool deck to acquire, and I'm still working with it a little bit more on a personal level. And then I recently, for my birthday this year, was gifted the Fifth Spirit Tarot by Charlie Claire Burgess. I don't know for sure if that's how their name is pronounced, but that's my best guess, Charlie Claire Burgess. And while there is quite a lot of diverse representation in the Next World Tarot, and there is some, what I would call some queer representation for sure, I primarily think of this deck as a social justice and activism themed deck or based deck. Whereas this one definitely has a larger overall theme of queer representation. Trans, non-binary, all of those types of things. So I feel like this is my first explicitly queer deck, if we were to label anything like that. Whereas this has some of that, but it's not like the overall vibe of it. This gives me more kind of overall leftist politics, social justice, direct action, mutual aid. And that's in this too. So they definitely have similar vibes and overlapping vibes, but what the primary flavor is, I guess, just feels a little different to me. So I think of Fifth Spirit as my first queer deck, even though I already had Next World and some of that is in there. Basically, that's my disclaimer. That's what I mean by that. But this is a beautiful deck, and my friend has the original indie printing version, and then this is the newer edition that is mass market produced. This is Hay House, and some of the cards were updated for this edition, and some of the formatting is a little bit different. So I might post about this elsewhere or do a whole video about it some other time. But some of the font was updated. The numbers at the top are in the numerical version here, whereas they're like Roman numerals in the original version. And a few of the cards' artwork is either entirely changed in this edition or just updated quite a bit from the original, but then most of the deck is not changed other than like font updates and stuff. But whereas I said, sometimes it can take me a while to feel like I'm getting to know a deck to the point where I'm ready to read it for other people. I've been using this deck to read for myself, and I already have started using it to read for other people. I've done 2 or 3 readings for other folks with this deck already. But some decks I just feel more connected to, and I feel like I'm ready to start reading, kind of right away, and others take me a bit longer. I'm just trying to flip through and pick a few things to show you. So here's the Moon card. There we go. That might be better lighting on this side. The font at the bottom is a little difficult to see on this one, but a lot of the others were kind of changed to make that easier. Like some of the cards have a dark background that goes all the way down, and then the words are actually in this glowing font. Strength has a pipple. And my dog, who doesn't live with me full time, she lives with my ex, is a pit bull boxer, so I love this card so much. That gentle strength. Here we have the Magician. The Lover's card is the one that's on the cover of the guidebook and the box, at least of this edition. Here is the Hierophant, which is one of the cards that was just slightly updated. In the original, they're painted facing directly straight on, and then in this version, they're turned to the side a little bit more in profile. This is the Death card, which is really beautiful in my opinion. We've got multiple generations and kind of experience all throughout life. Here are the Nine of Pentacles and the Nine of Swords. They just happen to be next to each other. So not all of the cards have people in them. Some of them are just scenes and items. Here is the Justice card of this deck. Gorgeous. And the Sun includes a self-portrait of the creator, and this is one of the cards that got an update from the original version to this version. So they updated what their hair looks like and the fact that they have more tattoos now, which I just think is really cool. the inside of this version of the box also has stuff in it. And yeah, there are a lot of other things that I love about this deck, but I'm not going to go all into that. But this is one of the newer ones that I've been working with for myself. I'm not using any of these for my daily card pulls because I have found that when I have done any of the ones that I'm actively using as my daily card, I either reach for the deck and like do a whole reading and then realize, oh wait, I forgot the card of the day is still like in its little stand, so that wasn't part of the reading. Or I find that I don't want to use it because like it's sitting over there being the card of the day deck. So I have chosen to keep those things kind of separate for me at this time when I'm wanting to get to know a deck a little bit more on a slower day-by-day basis. I use it as my card of the day, and the ones that I'm actively using for more readings, I don't use for the card of the day because I don't want one of the cards to be out separately. I know it's not a huge deal and there would be ways to go around it. It's just what I have decided and realized works for me. So if you go to my website, which I hope that you do, on my card readings page, there is a series of like things to know that are in a little drop down. And if you click on the one to expand it that says, I am a queer reader, it says, and I'll grab a screenshot so I can put it up here, I am a queer reader. I myself am queer, and I don't assume cis-het monogamy as the norm. I am happy to read for any identity/expression. It's okay if you're not queer. But you should know that I'm queer, trans, poly, and kink friendly and will likely utter the phrase fuck the binary at least once. This point is important enough to me that it is repeated below on the page in a Progress Pride flag colored highlight. And indeed it is. So I want to talk a little bit more about that because somebody did ask me recently to kind of expand on what I mean by being a queer reader, other than the fact that I am queer. Like, what does that mean about how I approach a reading? And I said a little bit of it on there, which is that I don't assume cis-het monogamy as the norm. Well, what does that functionally mean, though, when you get a reading from me? And it's not about having a deck that is specifically depicting queer relationships or identity. It's not about being sexually or romantically described as queer, but that is part of my experience. But in the sense of like queering, for me, it's about that non-assumption and it's looking beyond the binary. So that even if I am using a deck that has very standard traditional, how we think of that now, imagery and names, right? There's kings and queens, and the emperor is a man, and the Hierophant is a man, and and things like that. The court cards represent real people, literally in your lives. It means that that is not how I'm reading them. Even if that's what's on the card, I am not going to assume that the king showing up means that it's about your father. And if I'm reading for you and I don't really know anything about you and something comes up about a relationship card, if I know that you're a woman, I am not going to assume and start talking about, oh, this is about your husband. First of all, I don't make assumptions about your life in that, this card even means that it's about your partner. It could be about something else fully just in your life. It could be about something to do with work. It doesn't, just because it depicts, the lover's card doesn't have to only mean a lover. So not only that, but it also means that I'm not assuming you have a husband. I'm not assuming that you have a partner. I'm not assuming the gender of that partner or your relationship to them. I'm not assuming that that's your only partner. I'm not assuming, that you have a good relationship with your mother if a card comes up that's about that. And if a card comes up that might traditionally be thought to be about a romantic relationship, or it's a lot about emotions and that kind of connection, I'm also not assuming that that's even the type of connection that you want with another human being. Aro-ace people exist, right? So unless you have told me something about that, unless you have said, I am looking for romantic relationships and that's what I want to know about, or unless you've said there's something going on with my spouse and then I know you're married, right? You could really sum all of this up as, I just do not assume what is the norm for people. And because I am queer myself, if anything, it's more likely that I'm gonna think in those terms first compared to someone who that's not their lived experience. Plus, just as a fun fact, the reason that I came up with the idea to list all of those things right there, and I originally had put it like in an Instagram story, and then I saved that Instagram story in my highlights, and then when I made the website, I decided to transfer that information over But the reason that I even thought about naming it in the first place was actually that years ago when I was looking for a therapist, depending on where you're doing your searching for therapy in your area, various websites now, they have like search filters that you can search for specific types of folks, not only in what type of area of life they specialize in counseling in, but also about them. You could look for a male therapist or a female therapist or a non-binary therapist. Or maybe that part of it isn't important to you, but you want to know that they are going to be open to talking about non-traditional spirituality, or what is sometimes listed as alternate spirituality, or basically that they are not fully Christian-based and they are not going to be talking at you from a Christian perspective. And there were all of these other things that you could also look into. Again, not just they work with ADHD and neurodivergence, they work with anxiety and depression and PTSD. Like, those aren't the only thing. They work with insomnia, right? Not only the things that I might know I'm going for, but the other things about my life that are likely to come up when talking to people. So it listed things on there like whether they themselves are queer or non-binary or trans. It listed things like if they are kink friendly and are used to talking about things like that, if they're going to be talking about your relationships, non-monogamy friendly. So if you're going to be talking about having multiple relationships and some of them involve kink dynamics, if you're going to be talking about being a witch, if you're going to be, all of these things, it is useful to know that about the person that you're going to be talking to and getting advice from. So even though I am not a therapist, I am not licensed in anything like that, getting a reading is a similarly vulnerable experience in the sense that you might be telling me something about your life that you want to know a little bit more about and get some guidance on, and it could be helpful to you to know that I am part of some of those communities, or that I am at least friendly with some of those communities, that I know a little bit about it, that I'm not going to immediately be like, whoa, that's weird and I'm not talking about that, So I got the idea because of the search filters that you can look for when you're looking for a therapist, and I thought this is the kind of stuff that would be helpful for people to know. Now, I feel like most people who are getting readings from me do watch my channel, so you know some things about me, but other things are not super obvious. Like, I use they, them pronouns. I list it as they, she a lot of the time because I accept she, her, like, in the world from people who don't know me. But when I'm in community with people, I use they, them pronouns, and that's what I prefer to go by. I consider myself a non-binary femme. I am not Indigenous or a person of color, which some people might think, oh, you can tell that by looking at me, but you can't always tell by looking at someone. And you definitely can't tell who we're attracted to, how we're used to forming relationships. So that was kind of the intention behind listing those things. And yeah, particularly around, like, even if I'm using a deck that has more binary language in it, that doesn't mean that I'm going to interpret things in a binary way. And that's why I often do say fuck the binary in a lot of things, because there might be cards that come up that are about things that are in polarity or that might seem like a binary. And so if I'm talking about light and darkness, or I'm talking about the difference between action and pause, purposeful pause, or something like that, like we might be talking about things that are in binaries or polarities, not because it's about male and female and the perceived gender of the person on the card or anything like that. And I'm always going to keep all of those other things in mind. And ultimately, it's up to you. So sometimes I will literally say, like, well, it could be this or it could be that. And this is where it gets into, I also have linked on there that I did a video a while ago where I answered like 10 questions that every tarot reader should answer. Maybe I'll update that at some point in the future, but I did that a while ago, and one of the things was about like whether or not you consider yourself a psychic or call yourself one. I am not a psychic, and what I mean by that is unless you have told me about it, I do not know that thing about your life. I am not like, oh yes, this person is married to this gender of person and they are this many years old and they went to Cabo last year and blah, like, no, I don't know any of that stuff. That's what I mean by I'm not a psychic. But all of these skills, intuition, all of these other things, we often refer to them as psychic skills. So I'm careful about using terms because it depends on who you're talking to, but I feel like most people understand psychic to mean mind reader, and no, we are not. I am not. So whereas some people might look at some of my interpretations where I'm like, it's either this or this, and I don't know because I don't know that about your life, some people would be like, well, why don't you know that? Aren't you supposed to know that? I thought you were a psychic. No, I don't know that thing for sure about you. So there are many ways to interpret things. So I might say, like, well, if this is true, then it might be saying this. But if that's true, then it means this other thing, right? Like, I then leave it up to you to say, okay, well, that situation doesn't apply to me, so it's probably this other thing. It's hard to give examples because I don't want to give any specific examples from like recent readings that I've done for people, but that's basically what I mean when I emphasize those things, is that queerness and being outside the binary and viewing polarities differently and not as gendered is part of my lived experience, and it's a huge part of my magical practice and how I see the world. And that necessarily is reflected in how I would read things compared to another reader who doesn't view the world that way. So right now, as of this recording, as of the day that this will be going up, I only offer readings asynchronously at the moment. You will receive it through your email. My year card readings, which I said I was going to talk a little bit more about later, I will talk about now before I go. The year card readings are based on the numerology based on your birthday. As such, they're a great thing to do around your birthday or around the new calendar year, because there are two ways to interpret when your year cards come into play, become active, and those two different methods are at the start of a new calendar year and on your birthday that year. If your birthday is really close to the end or beginning of the calendar year, then it's gonna be different for you than if somebody's birthday is in the middle of the year, like my birthday is in August. So the way that those things are interpreted actually makes a difference. And again, because of the non-binary nature of everything and my Gemini moon being like, why would I choose when I can just have both? I have a bunch of information ready and prepped, and I give you tables and diagrams and, images describing the different ways that these things work and why it may or may not matter to you, depending on where your birthday falls throughout the year, which way you decide to interpret it. So I will actually show you, here's what it would look like if you're just going by the new calendar year, here's what it would look like if you're going with your birthday, and here's what it looks like if you do the combined method where both of them matter, which is what I do. But again, that might also be something that I like because my birthday is kind of in the middle of the year. It's not exactly in the middle, but like if your birthday was really close to New Year's, I could see it mattering a little bit less, but also maybe it doesn't. So again, I provide many options, and then it's up to you to kind of decide. The year card readings I do as a video. You will receive a video link in your email because it's a lot easier for me to describe what's going on with the cards and how they're all related to each other in a video. I do not type all of that out. But for the other regular tarot and oracle readings, it's up to you. I like to do a typed interpretation and send images of the reading, provided that both of those things are accessible to you. If something else is needed for accessibility, there are options for that on the form, so you can let me know. But the year card readings I always do as a video because that is the easiest way for me to do them. Again, if somebody were not able to access a video, like if audio is not accessible to you, I would of course take the time to type it out. But for people who don't need that for accessibility reasons, it's a video and it's easier for me to do that way. So this is all explained when you look at the stuff on there, but it's based on numerology, so I need to know your birth date, month, day, and year. And instead of like shuffling and pulling cards, it's entirely based on the numerology. The numerology will tell me which numbers of the cards to draw. And then I go through what that kind of means for your next year. And when I do it, it's not actually just your next year. I do the reading for the current year that you're getting the reading done, the previous year, and the next year, so that you can look at it in context of this little arc of this section of your life. So that's why I say doing it around the new year is a really good time, but I also think doing it around your birthday is a great time. So yeah, it is all asynchronous right now, and I'd have a 1 to 2 week turnaround, and that's because sometimes I might have a lot of other stuff going on. I've got Vlogstice going on right now. I've got this other project I'm editing for. The holidays obviously are coming up, and if I get multiple readings in a week, I'm not going to be able to get them all done in a week, so I give myself a 2-week window for turnaround. But that's kind of how that works at the moment. And eventually I would love to get back to scheduling where you can do it live. We can get on a video call and spend an hour and do your reading in that hour. But right now, no room in my schedule for figuring that out. But that is something I've done in the past, and I plan to do it again in the future when my schedule allows. But the readings are a big way that I am supporting myself right now, and that I'm able to buy groceries and feed the cats and like do all of that. So don't wait until I have the live ones scheduled. If you're interested in getting a reading from me, go ahead and get one now. Try out the asynchronous version. I did a reading for somebody the other day that was their first reading ever, and like that, what an honor, right? Like that's so fun. So the link to my website is always in the description, and I think the link to my readings page is also specifically in the description. If it's not, I'll make sure that it is there now, but I'm pretty sure it's always there. You can read about my philosophy and all of that, kind of how I approach cardomancy, card-based divination. You can read about that on the website, and then the link will actually take you to my Ko-fi shop, where you can choose either a year card reading or the regular tarot oracle reading. From there, when you do that and fill it out, it should either redirect you to another page where it gives you the link to the form, or in the information that you will receive via email. If you click through to like get the item, quote unquote, it will give you the link to the form that I need you to fill out to tell me a little bit more about you and what that reading is going to be about, how you want to receive it, accessibility needs, format, all of that kind of thing, and then I can proceed as soon as possible. So that'll do it for this Vlogstice video. Thank you very much for watching and or listening. I will see you next time, and until then, don't forget to be awesome, blessed be, and goodbye for now. Happy Vlogstice!